Intrusive thoughts like, I'm a failure, or something bad is going to happen, they don't stick around because they're true. They stay because your brain rehearses them, and they naturally tick the neuroplasticity boxes that produced fast, sticky neural habits. These intrusive thoughts just randomly pop up sometimes. We try to force them out from our minds, but they just seem to get louder and more aggressive. So what can we do? Let's examine the principles of neuroplasticity that make these negative thoughts and experiences so relentless. And more importantly, how we use those same principles to get rid of them once and for all. To illustrate this, let me show you something. Imagine I drag a stick lightly across soft sand one time, barely a line. Now imagine I drag that same stick in the same place over and over, pressing harder each time. Pretty soon, I don't have a line anymore. I actually have a trench, and eventually a canyon. Intrusive thoughts work like that, but so does healing. I'm going to share 3 basic rules of neuroplasticity that significantly boost brain change and how to use them to your advantage. They are, number 1, the most basic rule of neuroplasticity is neurons that fire together, wire together. Let's imagine that you're about to give a presentation and have the intrusive thought come up. I'm going to mess this up and everyone's going to see. That thought doesn't fire alone. It sparks a whole cluster of brain regions at that same time. Your visual or other sensory circuits light up in relation to the office or classroom that you're in, the people quietly chatting in the back, the colors around you, the feeling of your own clothes even, and a million other sensory inputs. Your emotional circuits trigger fear. Your body's stress response systems that include your breath, your muscle tension, sweat response, and all of those go to work. Physical motor regions ignite related to your movement and proprioception. And your memory centers pull up similar moments from the past. In a moment, these areas light up all together. And when that simultaneous firing repeats, the connection between those brain cells gets stronger, a little thicker, a little faster, more reflex-like. It's like the brain saying, oh, we always activate this emotional alarm when this kind of thought or situation shows up. Got it. I'll make this pathway quicker. That's why an intrusive thought can eventually feel instant. The fear, the tight chest, the mental story, the urge to avoid that thing. They've become a bundled pattern, a conditioned response your brain thinks is actually helpful. In other words, the thought fires, the emotion fires, the body fires, the memory fires, the avoidance urge fires, and your brain welds them all together into one rapid, efficient loop. And here's the hopeful part. The same rule works in the opposite direction. If neurons that fire together wire together, then every time you pair a calmer body state, or even an excited or energetic body state, with a more accurate thought process, with a small, courageous action, and with even a hint of positive emotion, you're firing a new cluster of neurons together. Do that consistently, even in tiny doses, and your brain begins wiring that pattern instead of the old one. Number 2, Repetition plus intensity of experience, including things like attention and emotion, equals dramatic rewiring of the brain. Repetition is extremely important, but change is not just about grinding repetition. It's also about the intensity of emotion and attention produced in each of these repetitions. Think of the presentation scenario we discussed earlier and the negative thought, I'm going to mess this up and everyone will see. In that moment, most of us are intensely focused on that one thought and the disastrous what ifs that surround it. We also really feel it at that moment. When attention is focused and something is emotionally intense, positive or negative, your brain releases neuromodulators like norepinephrine, dopamine, and acetylcholine. That chemical cocktail basically says, this matters. Wire this in as soon as possible. That's why a single humiliating comment in middle school can shape your self-talk for decades. That's why the fear before a presentation can lead to further avoidance and fear in the future. But it's also why one moment of real forgiveness or compassion can completely change how you see a person, or how a therapy session that activates emotion often create lasting change, even if they're only an hour a week. So directing focused attention to what you do want instead of what you don't want helps to create positive change. You can also create greater intensity by adding positive emotion with humor or excitement or courage. Things like laughter or smiling or a little hype up session, and saying your best intentions out loud. Sometimes it feels silly, but you're not just being dramatic. You're using your brain's tagging system. Attention and emotion are the glue that makes new wiring stick. Number 3, your brain responds to imagination just like real practice. Whether the experience is real, meaning physical and tangible, or imagined, only mental. People will often describe having worst case scenarios play in their minds when having negative intrusive thoughts, like the crash and burn presentation scenario that we've been discussing. This concept of rehearsal or visualization can further reinforce neuroplastic change. Your brain often can't tell the difference between vivid imagination and real experience. When you mentally rehearse or visualize, giving your presentation confidently, having a hard conversation and staying calm, handling a trigger with courage, responding to that intrusive thought with curiosity instead of panic, having positive, true thoughts that build you up. Your motor cortex, prefrontal cortex, and emotional circuits light up as if you're actually doing those things. Over time, repeated visualization can change your behavior patterns, your emotional responses, your confidence and self-concept, even your physical strength in certain movements. This in turn also reinforces the first rule of neuroplasticity that we've discussed, that neurons that fire together wire together. They all fire together. So not only do you say, I can handle this meeting, but you actually picture yourself doing it calmly and feel the relief afterwards. This is literally pre-wiring your brain for the next time you have a similar sort of situation. Practicing in your head counts as practicing to your brain, especially when you bring emotion and attention to it. Now, we're going to practice all three of these rules of neuroplasticity in one practice using a 4-step ACT framework, or ACTT framework. These 4 steps give you the framework for implementing all of the rules of neuroplasticity we've discussed in a simple and meaningful way. Make sure to stick around for 2 more neuroplasticity rapid fire bonus tips at the end of the video as well. Let's go back to the presentation scenario that we talked about earlier. You're prepping for your moment to present, and the recurring intrusive thought arises. I'm going to mess this up and everyone's going to see. Now we act. Step 1, we acknowledge and accept. We aim our attention. Most people either believe the intrusive thought or we fight it with all we can. Both of these feed and perpetuate the thought. Instead, we want to notice and name it. You pause for 5 seconds and say, either out loud or in your head, I'm having the thought, I'm going to mess this up and everyone will see. My chest feels tight. My stomach is buzzing. This is my brain trying to prepare me for this challenge. This mindful act is just tagging it in a neutral way. This is called thought diffusion, and it helps to decouple the intensity of negative thought, emotion, and experience. You're bringing focused attention to what's happening inside you, which activates prefrontal circuits, instead of letting the fear centers drive the bus. You're also starting to separate me from my thoughts. That creates tiny new wiring. I can observe this instead of obey it. If emotion wells up, good, that's fine. Remember, emotion and attention equal stronger learning. Step 2 is to change your body. Next, before you argue with your thought, you change your body state. Take a simple 4x6 breath. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds and out through your mouth for 6. Drop your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Press your feet into the floor. If you have a minute, walk down the hall, stretch, or maybe even jump up and down. Pumping yourself up if that feels more natural and helpful than just the slow breathing. Calming your body reduces stress hormones that lock in fear memories. It opens the door for new wiring to form in the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus instead of carving the anxiety groove deeper. You're preparing the soil so that the next thought you plant actually takes root. Step 3 is to think well. This is actually installing the new wiring. Now we work with the thought itself, not with fake positivity, but with truthful, compassionate, and vivid thinking. We're going to use 3 ingredients here: a fact-based reframe, emotion, and imagination or mental rehearsal. First, you ask, is it 100% true that I'll mess this up and everyone will see that? Usually the answer is no. And maybe the more accurate thought is, I might stumble a bit, but I've done hard things before, and most people are not judging me as harshly as I am. Now we add emotion and imagery. Close your eyes for 10 to 20 seconds and imagine you deliver the presentation with confidence. You finish a sentence and someone in the audience nods. Nothing explodes and you feel relief and even a little bit of pride. This is also where the idea of imagining your audience in their underwear comes from. Thinking of them in a silly or more vulnerable way can help you calm and feel more in control of the situation. Really let yourself feel the small win in that visualization. The slight warmth in your chest, the sense of, okay, I did it. This is crucial. Your brain doesn't stop responding to imagination. It rewires from what you rehearse. By pairing a more accurate thought with emotion and mini visualization, you're firing a new bundled circuit. I feel anxious and I will still show up. That's the core of positive neuroplasticity. And step 4 is you take action. Now we take one tiny behavioral step that matches the new thought, then let that one action domino. Let it domino into a sequence of small positive acts and experiences. Ask yourself, what's the smallest action I can take right now that lives out this new way of thinking? Here's a couple examples. Jump up and down and repeat, I got this. My body is preparing me to act. Look at your audience in the eyes and deliver your first line of your presentation. Repeat the thought you identified in the think well step. Sometimes something as simple as saying one kind comment to someone near you can actually help redirect attention in a more positive, audience-focused way. Then do it. Afterwards, take 5 to 10 seconds to notice how it felt. My heart was pounding and I did it. That's a new groove. I'm proud of myself. You're teaching your brain when this fear thought comes, the next step is calm the body, honest thought, and small action. As you set this 4-step framework as a ritual to follow any intrusive thought, new neurons fire together and wire together. That's the law of neuroplasticity working for you instead of against you. Now, here are just a couple quick rapid fire tips that will enhance your overall neuroplasticity in a healthy way. Bonus tip number 1, physical exercise, sleep, and nutrition are hugely important to neuroplasticity. Metabolic health plays a significant role in brain health and neuroplasticity. Watch our previous video on the law of physical health. And bonus tip number 2 is novelty and challenge excite your brain to create change. Taking on new physical and mental challenges and tasks encourage your brain to devote energy and resources to learning and change. Simple things like learning an instrument, language, dancing, reading, or any new task, even a few minutes a day, can make a big difference in cognitive longevity and health. So here's a quick reflection question. Drop this in the comments. What's one intrusive thought you're ready to stop wiring in? And what's the truer thought you want to practice instead? Share it if you're comfortable. You might give someone else words they desperately need. If you want more principle-driven, science-backed tools for anxiety, intrusive thoughts, and everyday mental health, hit subscribe and the bell. We'll keep walking through the 28 laws of mental health, and I'll keep giving you simple practices that respect both your humanity and your brain biology.